always try to bank some calories if you can by working a little harder before and after the holiday. So you're not thinking so much about it. You're not much about it. You know you're going to get back on that horse the next day. So anyway, since this is such a relaxing place and environment, and it is so quiet, gentle breeze blowing, it's just beautiful here. I thought I would continue our talk about performance anxiety. And I was thinking about some stuff yesterday um, while I was out and about doing my thing, having fun down here in Florida. As always, I will tie some of this back to not only my own personal experience, but the experience that I have with my students currently and my student bands. So one of the things that's come up for one of my students, who happens to be in one of my student bands, is that I've identified the need to strike a balance with this particular student. The balance between, and this has come up before, but most recently with this particular student, the balance between perfection and wherever you're at, right? So, in order to be aware and cognizant of where we're at, we need to be honest with ourselves, we need to evaluate ourselves, and we need to make sure that we're also gentle with ourselves, we're kind to ourselves, because nothing is worse than expecting perfection and falling short and beating yourself up about it. So I think that could also be one contributor to performance anxiety, or anxiety even before a show, not during the show, not at showtime, but before the show, anxiety leading up to the show in preparation for the show. Now, one of the things that we have not yet talked about is the effect that this kind of performance anxiety can have upon you and your preparation and your performance. So one of the biggest things is that we have to try to not allow this anxiety to paralyze us. I've lived through this, I've gone through this, I've been through this, and I can recognize it in my students, I can recognize it in others, when you're just overwhelmed to the point, or anxious to the point, or stressed to the point where you just shut down and you walk away from the stressor. You walk away from the very thing that's causing you anxiety. You put it aside, you leave it alone. The music, you don't practice, you don't play, because every time you practice, you're thinking about the performance and how not ready you are. And that causes you to stay not ready by being paralyzed and not preparing properly. So it does become a vicious cycle. It does feed itself. It is an Ouroboros, if you will. Whereas that anxiety can keep you from preparing and just cause you more anxiety, right? And now what I found out is the remedy, or at least the partial remedy, because again, everything I talk about is not going to be a miracle cure-all. It's going to take work, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take practice. But if you understand these basic things, it will help you tremendously. So what I found out is that action is often a good remedy, or very helpful at the very least. Action towards the thing that you are nervous about or anxious about. Take that action. Because when we get paralyzed, we avoid the very thing that's causing us anxiety. And that doesn't help, because that does not solve the problem. It does not bring you confidence. It does not bring you comfort, because that thing is still in the back of your mind, kind of hanging out there waiting for you to address it. And the longer you don't address it, obviously the less time you have to prepare. And that's one of the biggest things, because we do not prepare properly because we get put in that position of feeling paralyzed and avoidance. So getting back to the perfection versus where we're at thing, perfection is not real, right? And when we try to seek perfection, we will always be disappointed because it's not real. What we have to do is we have to accept where we are and understand that we are a work in progress and that we are working towards a goal. And that if we put in the time and the energy and the effort, we will get a little bit better each time. And that's really what we're shooting for. We're shooting for growth. We're shooting for progress, not perfection. We're shooting for something that's attainable, and progress is attainable, right? Getting better at something is attainable. Putting that work in and progressing is attainable. And I'm kind of chuckling because I also have a student who does not believe that progress is attainable or progress is even possible, even though they are a very talented student. But it's one of those things where the messages they give themselves are that of, that they won't progress, they won't get any better, it makes no sense, what's the point? What's the use of working? Well, I think that what we need to do is we need to give it a chance, and we need to challenge those thoughts, challenge those beliefs. What is the point of trying? It's not going to get any better. Well, we need to challenge that. And by challenging that, we need to try. We simply need to give it a week. I'm going to practice every day for 15 minutes for a whole week. And if I don't feel any more comfortable with what I'm trying to do, if I don't feel that I've gotten any better, then I'm right. I'm correct. Practice does not work. But if you see any progress, any growth, you must acknowledge it and you must move in that direction. Try it for another week, see what might happen. Maybe try 20 minutes a day for a week, see what happens then. And keep challenging yourself, keep challenging those thoughts so that you can figure out a way to progress past this point of it's not going to do me any good, it's not going to help, right? So I have a couple of students, probably more than that are very much in the mindset of I have to play this exactly perfectly right. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, especially as a young student. If you are trying to play a song that's challenging and that you're not yet comfortable with, and maybe your skills are not all the way up to that level yet, that's a lot of pressure. And when you want to be perfect, that pressure can push us in that other direction of feeling like, well, I can't do it perfectly, so I might as well not do it. That's also a tough way to think. That's also a tough mindset to have when you're trying to make progress in anything. If I can't do it perfectly, I might as well not do it. That's really, really difficult. So try to stay away from that kind of thinking. What I always suggest to my students when they're learning a song, learn it from start to finish. Know the changes, know the accents, know the basic beats so that when you get to band practice, you can play through the song and you can provide that foundation for everybody that everybody needs in the song. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be serviceable at first. If you find that you can comfortably handle the very basics of the song and get your band through it from the beginning to the end, then you can start adding some key parts, certain accents, certain fills that are heralds to a change in the song, certain fills that your bandmates may be listening for so that they know where they are in the song. That's what you tackle next. As you move forward and you get some rehearsals under your belt and you're getting through the song and everybody's on the same page, you could start to tackle the details. You could start to put that spice in there, those little extras, the fills, whatever extra things are in the song. You could start to add those things, but slowly, take it easy, take it slow. The most important thing, your number one job as a drummer, is to keep time, keep the band in time, keep the band together, provide that foundation, provide that beat for them to follow. And then in your lessons or on your own, you can work on the details and get through those first. But again, even if you are in the end shooting for perfection. There's nothing wrong with that. Expecting it right off the bat is dangerous and counterproductive. So if you're trying to achieve perfection, I want to nail that fill perfectly. Okay, that's great. But just understand that it's going to take a little time, it's going to take a little work, it's going to take a little effort, and you're going to fail at it, and you're going to play it poorly, and it's not going to sound good all the time. And then eventually you're going to get it, or you're going to get it up to speed. You started slow, you get it up to speed. But I think that's one of the things that also causes performance anxiety, is when we expect ourselves to be perfect, and we believe that others expect us to be perfect as well. Then that makes us avoid situations like band practice. It makes us avoid situations like band rehearsal and personal practice. I guess rehearsal means a group of people playing together, and practice means one person practicing individually. I think so. But anyway, you avoid things like band rehearsal. You avoid things like practice sessions for yourself because you get overwhelmed, because you have anxiety over your performance or your upcoming performance or whatever. Challenge your own thoughts. Kind of think about and try to be honest about what you are telling yourself about this gig, about this performance, about this rehearsal, about the song that you're playing. Think about those messages that you're telling yourself and then challenge them, and I think that is going to be helpful in reducing your amount of anxiety. Like I said before, none of this is a magic bullet or a magic pill. None of this is going to make all your anxieties magically disappear. But as we learn to work on them, as we learn to deal with them, that's the first. Working on them is one thing, but recognizing, acknowledging, and taking action is the first step. Once we start to do that, we can realize that our anxiety starts to lessen. And it starts to become a little more, you can deal with it easier. I don't remember the word that I'm trying to think of, but it becomes more manageable. That's what it is. It becomes more manageable. And then we can continue to work through it. And before you know it, we can have at least a handle on it, to where it's not debilitating, to where it is not causing us to shut down. It's not causing us to completely avoid the thing that's making us anxious. And if we can get to that point, then we can make tremendous progress after that. I remember after a long period of not playing drums, I started playing drums at 7. I was in bands at like 16, played in bands probably up until my 30s, when I got a real job. I got married, I bought a house, and then I took a few years off. And in that time, I was working and raising a family, and a buddy of mine from high school that I used to play with called me up and asked me if I wanted to play drums in a band, and I said yes, because I hadn't been doing anything. I hadn't been playing at all. And the next few months was me working with this original band, preparing for a show that I would later find out would be just a once a year thing, and that's all the band was there for. But that 6 months helped me shake the rust off, and that 6 months helped me to understand where I was in my ability to play with the band. And that first show, I must have dropped 12 drumsticks because my hands weren't working, because I was nervous. I was very nervous, but I played the show anyway. It was a great success. It was a great time. It was a packed house. And then things evolved from there. And even though for that particular band, that was pretty much the only show we played, that propelled me on till now. But that put me on a path to form another band that would stay together for about 12 years and tour all over the place and record records and play thousands of shows from that one phone call. But I was grateful not to have anxiety, because I had played a long time before that. But that first show, I was dropping drumsticks like a madman, because I was just that nervous. And I never felt like that after that. right? That first time back was great. And then, like I said, the many, many, many shows I played after that, the many tours I went on after that, I never felt those kind of nerves. And because I was because I was pretty much the manager of that band, the thing that would always cause me anxiety was logistics. Excuse me. Is everybody going to get to the show on time? Are we going to have everything we need? Is the PA going to be set up properly? Like, is there anything else? Are there going to be any problems and things like that? Are we going to draw enough people? Like all of those kind of things. But what I promised myself early on in that second run was that I would never be anxious or nervous because I was unprepared. That's the one thing I would never do. So I always made sure, and this is what I talked about, I believe, on Monday's show. Preparation is really helpful when you're suffering from anxiety, performance anxiety. The more prepared you are, think about when maybe you were in school and you had to read a report in front of the class. I know that whenever I did my work and I knew what I was going to say, and I knew how I was going to open and close and everything in the middle, and I was familiar with the work, I did not feel nervous. It was when I slacked off and was unprepared and knew that I was unprepared was when I was the most nervous, when I had to wing it. I always still did pretty good, but when I had to wing it, I was always nervous going up to, this particular event. So always remember to be as prepared as you possibly can be. Never be anxious because you're unprepared. Recognize the messages you're telling yourself if you're feeling anxious. Make sure you do not get paralyzed with anxiety and avoid preparing for this event, which will then cause you more anxiety. And challenge your negative thoughts. Challenge when you are telling yourself that you can't do it, that it's not good enough, that whatever it is, you'll never be prepared, it's going to sound terrible. Whatever you're telling yourself, challenge those beliefs. Get out there, work your butt off, and that's going to help a lot. So, hey, what's up, Larry? Miss you too, buddy. Miss you too. So I'm going to sign off, and everybody out there, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a beautiful holiday. Have a beautiful day. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it down here, spending time with family and friends. And I will see you on Friday for another edition of the Mark C. Drumcast. Have a great holiday, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.